Okay, right, so who are we and what do we do? Thank you everyone for coming to listen to us this evening. We'll just introduce ourselves to start with. I am Dawn Ripley. I'm on the left here. I have seen a few of you turn up that know me. Thank you for that. I am the portfolio manager for iHuxley. That's the programme delivering Dynamics and Power Platform for the Ministry of Defence on their secure network.
And I'm Sheryl Netley on the right here, and I'm a Dynamics consultant with Tisski. And I've worked with Dawn at MOD on the iHuxley programme for just over a year.
So our background. I started my career after graduating, designing, managing and conducting tidal, underwater, coastal and public health engineering, basically concrete, which is about as far removed from cloud-based software, agile project management as you can get. So how did I get here in the world of Dynamics? As with all project-based roles, you go where your next project is with your transferable skills. I ended up in telecoms, rolling out the police radio network for Avon and Somerset Police. A definite waterfall schedule, but looking back, was actually agile-based because if you moved one tower's metrics, you had to rerun the whole of the cell coverage map for 80 towers. On the way to joining Defence Digital, I worked for and with, a bit of fence hopping, Defence Estates, who are now Defence Infrastructure Organisation, on some major projects, and then through some good old-fashioned networking, got a job 10 minutes from home in the networks team, rolling out connections to ship moorings, and then the shiny project of secure smart mobiles for the MOD. That was definitely an Agile project, but delivered without any knowledge or training in Agile. One job change later, and I am in the ASDT team supporting the delivery of ModCloud while learning all about Agile and Safe. And then along comes iHuxley, Dynamics 365 development tool on a secure network using Safe. So my roles in the delivery currently are portfolio manager, including service delivery, line manager, delivery manager, trainer in the ways of Safe, the release train engineer, and a product owner. In other words, to quote a colleague, I get stuff done. All in between looking after 2 children and running the terror fleet for their sailing club. Now there's an Agile role if ever there was one.
So in my countdown to D365 and to being here, I have worked on over 100 different projects in public, private and not-for-profit sectors. I've worked in IT for 25 years, starting on a service desk and ending up here. For most of that time, I've been implementing apps, which is how I first came across Dynamics back when it was CRM 11. Outside of work, I love festivals and I volunteer at quite a few, doing everything from recycling to looking after the performing artists. And on average, I go to around 7 festivals every year. I am a mum of 4, mostly grown up now, and that's me as well as the kids. And the last one is a number 1, which is Tisski. They are my current and obviously best employer. And just over a year ago, as I mentioned, I joined Tisski and I went to work at MOD, which is really how I got to be here with Dawn today, as I took part in the iHuxley programme as a hybrid BA consultant and working mainly on transformation streams. And this is where I have become newly converted to all things Agile, and particularly to the wonderful world of Safe.
So, keeping that background in mind, tonight we wanted to just give you a brief insight into what Safe is and how we use it, particularly in the MOD. Sheryl will run through the difference between Waterfall and Agile, and then I will take you briefly through how MOD are using Safe to deliver in our particular organisation, sharing some learning from experience, and then Sheryl will focus on the project team side of Safe. Hopefully, we will give you a good insight into Safe and how it can help you determine if your next project would benefit from Safe and or some of our LFE.
So we're going to start with Waterfall, and here we have a graphical representation of a waterfall approach to managing projects. And you can see that there are sequential linear stages with the output from one stage flowing into the one directly after it, a bit like a waterfall. And historically, Waterfall was the go-to method for managing projects. And of the 100 plus projects I've been involved with, I'd estimate around 80% of them have been managed using a Waterfall approach. And, whilst it's always been sort of okay, it provided control and in some cases some really good outcomes, there was still quite a lot of projects that just didn't meet up with customer expectation, even when teams worked really hard to deliver on all of the documented requirements. And, I think there are a number of reasons for this. One is that, as you can see, requirements gathering happens once, right at the start of the process. And there is one big bang, high risk release right near the end. And for long and complex projects, it's likely that by the time you've reached the end of the project, all of those requirements, or at least some of them, may have changed. Also, by doing the requirements right at the start, we're engaging with only those stakeholders who are present at that time or who have been identified at that point in the project. It also makes it difficult for us to envision a solution that could be months away. And particularly with Dynamics, the platform itself is changing very quickly. So if a project has taken, say, 18 months to deliver, it's likely that the customer may well be faced with having to use deprecated features, or they may not be getting benefit from the new ones. The linear critical path approach sort of means that projects can be drawn out whilst blocking issues are removed, and with that same linear process, change is really difficult. It's really hard to go back to a previous stage. In my experience, lessons learned is carried out right at the end of a project, so that the things that we learn during the project lifecycle don't have a benefit to that project itself. Also, communications is a big issue. If we are doing the lessons learned right at the end, we find out at that point that communications maybe isn't working. And this can often be because there is one single point for comms in a waterfall project, which is the PM, right? They're responsible for progress reviews for most customer contact, and there's little interaction between the customer and the project teams, and that causes a lack of synchronicity. The main issue for me, though, with Waterfall is that value for the customer is not realised until the very end of the project. Okay. With all that being said, I do think there is still a place for Waterfall, because if you have a simple and changing project, or a project where customer involvement is difficult to achieve, Waterfall can actually tick all those boxes for you. So we're coming on to Agile, and we're going to discuss the fact that Agile is more cultural and is more about the way that you think than the way you work. Generally, Agile methodology is used as an umbrella term for a set of processes and frameworks that enable you to operate in an Agile way. There are 4 key values of Agile methodologies, and these are described in something called the Agile Manifesto, which was created back in 2001. And the Agile Manifesto states that we will value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. Now, that is not to say that we don't value the items on the right. We just value the items on the left more. So how that looks in practice is like this. As you can see from the graphic, Agile is all about working in continuous cycles with flexible, continuous evolution. In Agile, modifications are welcome, except within a sprint, and customer involvement is crucial at the early stage and all the way through a project. And because we are releasing in every cycle, there is a much quicker time to value. And Agile works best for large complex projects. Typically, most enterprise implementations of Dynamics 365 would suit an Agile approach. And many organisations, including many government departments and public sector organisations, now explicitly request an Agile approach for their projects. So very quickly some Agile terms you may have heard, Scrum and Kanban. These are frameworks that can help you change the way you think and the way you work. And although we're not covering those today, we've included a link to the Atlassian Agile Coach website, which has some great intro videos if you're interested to learn more. You'll be hearing the term Scrum Master, which is essentially the team coach for an Agile team. And you'll be hearing Agile Release Train, ART, which is a team of Agile teams, and the phrase PI, which is a time box called a program increment or PI. Just for information, the Agile Alliance has a really useful glossary of terms. There are loads of acronyms and loads of phrases that you may have heard before, and there is a link to their website at the end of this presentation. And also, there's a business applications MVP called Neil Benson, who specialises in using Agile, particularly with business applications and the Power Platform. And we've included a link to his website at the end of this presentation, and I can highly recommend his Agile Foundations mini course.
So, what is SAFE? SAFE is Scaled Agile Framework. This complicated diagram is the official diagram from SAFE, setting out the release train approach. To explain this is a week-long course, so let's just jump straight through to a simple one I found on the good old internet. SAFE is when you have multiple delivery teams whose products are interlinked, i.e. components of one major product delivery. It is essential that you are aligned in your design solutions so they are compatible. There's no point building something amazing in isolation if it won't integrate with the wider program. And it's about delivering benefits timely to the end users and customers. Early releases with a bit of program jiggling can mean that a product is beta tested robustly early to inform the next release of the product, while bringing in some benefits, many, early, rather than waiting until the product is fully finalized. Then testing to learn, A, you've missed the boat, and B, the customer doesn't like it. My favorite term in SAFE is fail fast. By doing short, sharp hits, you get immediate feedback, and there is also less to change if required. Scale that up across the program and it starts bringing in the benefits, but it has to be managed carefully. And it's not just about having a release train engineer telling you your post-it notes need moving. The key word, scaled. Scale your framework to suit your portfolio. All the tools are great, but don't overdo it. You have to remember most customers are not full-time on your delivery. They have a day job to fit into. More on that shortly. Let me just run you through the diagram. Same as Agile, it starts out with a need, but there's lots of them. But nobody is too sure what the answer is. But in SAFE, you have either more than one major product or delivery by different teams that interlink with each other in the same way. That's over here in the portfolio version. That is what we do in iHuxley. It requires lots of teams to contribute. If we got one that are all working towards a key deliverable and lots of teams working on it, you can use the program level one, and that is what ModCloud do, which is my sister team back in the office. Either way, these multiple teams are fielding into, all gaining from, the same similar benefits and make up your Agile release train. Again, using an iterative-based approach, so the Scrum teams, doing design, build, test, release in short iterations. They can be 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity and multiple options in your design choice. You build a bit, then you ask your customer if they like it. If they do, marvelous, carry on. If they don't, backtrack just a little and try again. But obviously, always bringing it back to what is the business benefit of that change. You are doing it for multiple teams that need to constantly align to the same cadence, business objectives, and delivery priorities. Throughout the process, you hold key ceremonies, planning sessions, tests, and demos at various levels with the right team members at each. Your key leads with your release train engineer facilitating and checking programmatically how changes affect everyone else in your train. But it is your PO, your product owner, and your SRO that have to determine if any changes in scope and priorities, as it is they who are responsible for delivering the benefit to the customers. As with every project, it's all about the planning, and SAFE is no different, despite the myths. And central to that element of SAFE is PI planning, the program increment, and actually the preparation for PI planning. Oh, and having the right people in that room when you plan. More on that in a moment. So the basics of PI planning, it's post-it note central. As you can see from the photos, it looks like chaos, and potentially it is. And to your customers, it may feel like it, but actually it's very simple. You plan your priority list of features beforehand with your customer in your separate teams or scrums, and then constantly focusing on your business benefits in line with the vision. Your dev team and your customers work through what can be achieved in what logical development order for that PI. Approximately 12 weeks. It's a great way to tick 3 months of your life off in big hits. And you work out how much effort it will take to achieve each activity. Big handfuls all the time, taking notes on post-its of any risks, enablers, or dependencies. All very standard. But then you have to look at the other boards in your room. Have they brought any dependencies over to your board? Does that affect your order of delivery? Do you need to take any enablers over to another board and change the order of delivery on their board? It sounds chaotic, but actually with the right attitudes, and I do mean attitudes, it does work. You have an agenda for your session, normally 2 days, and you constantly review, and you have constant reviews of each board in front of everybody else in the release train. And that's where the value comes in. Other teams will offer advice, spot your risks, challenge your thought process. So your collective brain power goes from, say, 8 up to 50 to 100, depending on how many in your release train. And then your customers reevaluate priority orders for the greater benefit of the vision with the full picture to make that decision. Your customers also get to see what goes into the development and build of their product and those of the whole release train. They are more proactively involved in the planning, and thus they take more ownership and hopefully lead in the decision-making process. Your outputs from PI planning is 3 months of features to be delivered in a set iteration order to ensure you deliver against dependencies and deliverables while addressing risks at the right time. You take those features and as a Scrum team, you turn them into user stories. Review in more detail your velocity, how much work, given the size of your team, you can get done in each iteration. Most importantly, you get an acceptance criteria off your customer. What does done give me equals benefit? They have to set what it is you are building for them so they know they are signing off what they are signing off when a successful test has been completed. Then use your release train engineer and delivery managers to drive those plans through and keep communications open and robust throughout. So what is your release train? So in the world of dynamics, you won't have the complexities of technological decisions in terms of agile development. But what you may have is lots of interlinking processes and confused or reluctant customers. As dynamics is often about process automation, your release train is most likely to be your flow of data. So using the mod as my examples here, data. Think upstream, think downstream. Don't think about the process in isolation. Get your customers to think big, not for greater business revenue for you, but for the greater value to them. You have the whole of the Office 365 suite of automation tools to help them realize the benefit of that to their business. How does SAFE help this? It's all about the interconnecting processes, but not your as-is process model, but your to-be digital transformation process model. Each customer will have a view on what to-be will look like, but they need to dock into each other to get that value. Also, one person's good idea may be loved or hated by the next customer. Ideas will be borrowed, grown, or dismissed, and all the time you need to keep coming back to the business value that these interlinked processes will deliver. The key mantra for us is enter once, reuse many times. So by working together, designs can be adjusted to provide downstream information in a format that takes it from the source, three processes back upstream. The benefit? Greater confidence in the data, no fat finger errors and no interference through ill-advised changes. But the challenge is your other customers may not want to be involved initially, and if they do, they may arrive at the party at different times. It may be that they need to be shown that it's worth their effort and have it proved to them that it's worthwhile. That's where your system demos come in. Show them the first release of one process and answer the so what question that they will have. Also, get your current customers heavily involved in end user testing, because the chances are they work on the next process downstream as well. And that's where the bigger benefits come in. I have found that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts when it comes to the diagram on the screen. Should we be funded to deliver, say, 80% of the right processes, 20% of the team members on that screen right now don't need any additional work, as the information they require pops out of a Power BI dashboard we can set up for them. If we had built these processes in isolation, then we wouldn't have known that these outcomes were possible because we didn't consider them. We may not have delivered all of these processes yet, but the hooks are there in the build ready to bounce straight off into should we get the funding. By building in an agile way that considers that these additional to-be processes may come along partway through your build, you hopefully have to undo less work, and it highlights more opportunities to the wider customer base. As these new customers come on board, it might be that a change is required to the original process that you were working on in order to interlink the two, and dependencies will get highlighted as well as risks. By working in the agile manner, you can build up the big picture iteratively, and it helps your customers plan their approach as well. Briefly on enablers, dependencies and risks, this is where SAFe can really become powerful. But you need to be honest and receptive to the conversation around dependencies and risks. Try to plan out risks during PI planning where possible. If you can't, then manage through the standard risk process, bringing it back to your train and the benefits you require all the time. Dependencies and enablers, make them clear and be honest about when you really need them to be done. You could be preventing early realization of benefits in one team because they prioritize your enabler delivery first when you didn't actually need it for another iteration. So who do we need to make this work? How do we bring it all together? As with everything, it's all about the people, and this is what will make the difference to your, to the difference between success and just an okay job. You need a strong and robust SRO, senior responsible owner, who knows their business area and is willing to get their hands dirty, challenge hard, and call decisions in the interests of the business. You need an available and keen product owner. They really must be available. The pace cannot be achieved without the PO being available to answer the questions and decisions that need to be made. You need them to translate user needs and demands into user stories for the developer, and they must be prepared to engage robustly with the end users. It's not a wish list, it's about delivering business benefits. Delivery manager, they need your standard PM toolkit, but they need to be flexible in their approach. One size does not fit all, especially in SAFe. So it's all about being agile in approach as well as the plan. Business analysts, they need to be able to robustly ask the key questions, which are why, why, why. They've got to drive home the point of so what and get the customers to come to an answer to the question, so what's in it for me? And definitely get to the response because we've always done it. Show that one the door straight away. The right people in the room. Not necessarily top of shop, and it's not necessarily your actual customers. It's the people that feel the pain, but a sensible amount in the workshop. The key ones that have been doing the real job. Remember, though, that not just in end users may be the right people. It's safe, so get the right stakeholders. For me, a huge amount of policy and security assurance has to be achieved, my enablers, and it helps to have them on board very early so that any process can be designed to achieve accreditation easily and quickly. Comms person. People need to know. You will be surprised how many people suddenly are affected by your change or feel they should have been consulted and or reported to, or just want to know to see if they can do the same. Have comms strategy ready, but again, be agile. Change to suit the atmosphere and environment as your program progresses. Customer. This is your full customer base, and they will come with attitude. Be prepared and do your prep. See all of the above, but they may not have been involved at close quarters. You need them involved, feeding back and adopting the product. If they don't, no matter how amazing your product is, you won't realise any benefits if it's not used. And they will say it's the software's fault, and thus by association you, not the initiating business owner. They probably don't even know their name. What do you need? You need time. People are busy and don't want to change again. Plan it carefully and do your prep. Don't waste the end user's time, or you will just turn them off to something they are already suspicious about. Leadership. Not leading in making decisions, but leading through guiding and facilitating the stakeholders to make those decisions while you lead them through the process. But being honest in your feedback to them. If there are implications to their decisions, tell them. Reminding them constantly that they are part of a release train. Give them the full picture so through SAFE they can adapt the plan and deliverables accordingly and make fully informed decisions. Patience. They are frustrated, under pressure, and possibly not enjoying the process or not understanding SAFE or dynamics, and will be suspicious given the myths around no planning and no documentation. They are used to Waterfall and lots of shelfware. Tolerance. They will resist, but conversely, once on board, they may flood you with ideas and demands. Watch for scope creep. Compassion. You could be doing them out of a job, or they may see this as yet more change to bring them yet more work. Energy. You have to be their energy. They have had change done to them so many times. You need to show them it's not to them, but by them, and that takes time. Attitude. As previously mentioned, go big or go home. Go big with a vision and then plan accordingly within the budget. Remember, it is scaled. If you build the foundations right, the product can be revisited in the future and the whistles and bells added on. Other products docked in with ease. And remember the 80-20 rule. For 20% more effort, you may get 80% more benefit. Agile does not have to be one continuous program or timeline. Embrace gaps while products are delivered, tested, and additional funding is found. But build it ready to accept those features because you had the vision at the start. Environment. You need a safe space. They won't talk to you on home soil, but haven't got the time to travel. It's simple, but crucial. Soft skills, facilitation and guidance skills. You need to be able to train them and educate them in the process in order to get the best out of them and it. They do not know SAFE, they don't like it, don't get it, or don't trust it. You have to show them it's going to work and bring the value, but you have to get the right open attitudes in the room. Why do you need all this? Remembering the previous slides, policy, policy, policy. Remember, we are a government department and everything is governed by policy. People are used to it, people expect it, people demand it. But why? Do we really need to do it that way? And who do we need to check if we are changing anything? Hierarchy. You don't get much more hierarchical organisation than the UK military. To bring all that history together, we have policy to ensure that we all play by the same rules, apparently. And we all have a cohesion in our approach, but that has to cascade down, and like a snowball, it gets bigger as it goes. And with every organisation, especially government, it's all about the money. We spend public funds. We don't have enough, and we have to account for every penny. So we need to prove long before we deliver anything that it will bring value to the organisation, and how much are we going to spend to do so, which will be too much, so do it for less. So the next thing you need to know in order to get the best out of SAFE is your customer, and what is their environment and culture, what makes them tick and what drives that culture. Bringing all the last few slides together, let me explain mine to put this all into context. And I am typical of any portfolio in MOD, and that's before we have been blended with another 2-star area to deliver this particular automation. So you've got the Ministry of Defence. Under that is the TLB of Strategic Command. Then you've got the high-level business team, which is Defence Digital. We are one delivery tower, application solution development tower. Under that is the B1 area of Defence Digital Agile Software House. And then you have my delivery team of iHuxley, under which there are many products being delivered. Apply that policy and approach and hierarchy across the whole of defence, and then add on that the complexities of each TLB defending their own pots of money, and it very soon becomes difficult to get agreement and alignment. And this is where our dynamic story began with CAMS. So this is where it all started with the CASP in this process. This is basically the agreements between parties to deliver projects and services across MOD, within MOD. Lots of information has to go up and down the hierarchy for approval, then across and back down the hierarchy of another team to get the agreement to deliver. And back and forth, by back and forth, I do mean including driving up and down the M4 to get hard copies signed. Now multiply that across defence every year and imagine how much paperwork that is, and much more importantly, how many people are involved. Whilst this is only one product, let me use this to highlight how this is a great candidate for Agile and for being part of SAFE. We went to SAFE because we had other projects coming online, refer to the previous diagram of flow of data, and also the additional enablers of assurance. So the CAS process, the approvals, was distilled down to the less than simple template shown after many workshops, and it is what we are delivering in Dynamics. Now, to get that digitalized version, we started off with, and I know John's going to correct me if I get this wrong, we generated 450 user needs within those workshops 18 months ago. They were initially refined to 350 user stories. We are well in excess of 500 user stories at the moment, and we released an MVP in October. I won't go into the diagram, but it just shows you the many, many different areas that go into the documentation for one level of the agreement plan. Now, expand that across, let me go on the right screen, across all of these TLBs delivered by these delivery agents answering to these people here. So this is the hierarchy, and each year approximately have, as I say, 6 TLBs. We have 3 delivery agents. Each of those, that makes up 16 agreement plans, 183 annexes that comprise of 346 appendices, and that's before, that was MVP. That's before we added on everything else. So how does this fit into the information flow diagram? Before we can deliver anything, we need the idea and the funding. Digital approvals tool. So let me go back on the right screen. So CAMS, this is what we've been delivering. Before we can go anywhere, we need the funding. So there's a digital approvals tool here. Having worked out those costs through options, which is here. If we are going to appoint any contractors, we need some contractual management here. And we need to comply with security and network assurance, health and safety. So that's all the way up here. Done. Where's my assurance, security testing, and all the other stuff we have to do. We need to be able to request changes, and we have to report on everything. Where's our PMO? There's dependency management and the portfolio office. Again, multiply that across defence for the hundreds of projects we deliver, and the linkages and options for design options of the digital format are huge. And then you need to get the customer to like it so they use it. That's where your demos come in. Solid PI planning. Not all of this workflow is or will be done in Dynamics, but the linkages are there to get the future benefits out in the future. Just to take this to the next level, now repeat that complexity for every project we have to deliver. Along with all the assurances, we are a secure network at the end of the day, so we have to comply with a huge amount of security legislation. We have to consider both information security and network security. And on top of that, I have 13 separate delivery teams wanting to deliver their own products. So they don't answer to me, they answer to separate TLBs. These customers are demanding and watching the Microsoft roadmap with very eagle eyes, and they want that new tech now. But as I own the security assurance on the platform, and I am charged with setting the governance across the platform, and as I only have a small core team, with which to do that, I have to rely with the community, work with the community to determine which enablers I can deliver, including not just the functionality for them to use, but also the necessary governance frameworks and security assurance to get the best value for defence, delivering the actual applications for digital transformation programme at a very fast pace. And this is definitely prioritised through safe planning. Sheryl.
Thanks, Dawn. Thanks for that. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about why I think SAFE is great for project teams. So we've discussed that it's an iterative approach and it focuses on continuous releases, incorporating customer feedback with every iteration. And I'm going to talk about a few areas such as customer focus, including customer centricity and communication aspects, planning, specifically the Agile planning onion, PI planning, which we've already spoken about, but I'm going to look at it from more of the team perspective. We're going to talk about something called Agile Cadence, and then how SAFE helps to improve the use of resources through team agility, and how it helps us to improve quality and promote quality outcomes for our customers. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a diagram that I took from Scaled Agile Framework that describes the 7 core competencies of SAFE. So just to outline what comprises the SAFE methodology, we have enterprise. I'm on the top left-hand corner, enterprise solution delivery, which is used to coordinate multiple Agile release trains, arts and suppliers. We have team and technical agility, which we get through multi-skilled cross-functional teams. Agile product delivery, well, we're able to use DevOps practices to help us with that. For lean portfolio management, we organize around value and value streams. And organizational agility, this is really quite key because we need to be able to respond to evolving business needs. We have a continuous learning culture. Individuals and the enterprise as a whole are encouraged to continually increase competence, performance, and innovation. And we have a lean agile leadership. You know, everybody right from the top must embody, teach and exhibit lean and agile thinking. And all of these things enable us to put the customer right at the centre and achieve customer centricity. We achieve this by many of aspects of Agile and Safe, including iteration of smaller pieces of work with significant customer involvement over time. And we work in smaller chunks to make it easier for everyone who has a day job to do that as well as participating in the project. Also, we're not always trying to get all of the parties into one room at the same time. We consider culture and also hierarchy, particularly as this is MOD. And we also have to consider that there are an awful lot of different sites and different services. And quite importantly, we always have to remember not to constrain what we deliver just to the particular stream that we're working on, but to always plan and build with pan defense in mind. And because of this iterative approach, the customer comes with us on the journey. They're fully involved at every stage, and that helps us to build rapport, break down barriers, and build trust. And that means that the customer is honest with us about their pain points, and we're able to deliver or develop a real empathy and have a real business insight to understand what they need. And the customer also gets to see the full potential of the platform. Okay, next slide, thanks. We also have to bear in mind that, as Dawn said, the CAM solution currently has around 1,100 users, and that number is growing. And many of our transformation streams potentially have a pan defense reach. And that means there could be, over 180,000 potential users. So that it's absolutely essential that we keep even the most complex processes as consistent and as simple as we possibly can. We have a graphic here that actually was used alongside the CAM solution, and you can see, as an example of what we've done, we've used color coding to help different sorts of users locate different elements of training and guidance material that's relevant to them, and we signpost to all those relevant materials. I've mentioned that communication is often cited in project reviews as something that could be improved, and to challenge communication issues, we address and we engage with the customer face to face wherever we can. And as part of our cadence, which I'll be describing shortly, we have regular sessions with stakeholders within each stream. These can be one-to-one in small groups or as a larger project team. And we also have regular playbacks of the work done. And during every PI, we have all system demos, and we invite anyone who may be interested to those. And actually, Microsoft have been a great help as they have hosted days for us up at TVP, where we've been able to gather a truly pan defense audience. Next slide, thank you. So, Agile is not a free-for-all, right? And it's not code for lack of planning. The Agile approach is that there are multiple horizons that need to be considered. It is holistic, and it is sometimes represented by what is called the Agile planning onion, and this is what you can see on the screen now. And it starts at the outer layer with a business strategy. Obviously, organizations continually plan for their business strategy. And then we come to the portfolio. The portfolio planning is done yearly by the product owner. And the next layer down actually is where we start to get a bit more interested in this onion in terms of our project, because we come to the product planning. And this is done bi-yearly by the product owner and defines the product vision and outlines the roadmap for the product and for the work that we're doing. Then we come to release or PI planning, which Dawn has mentioned and which I'm going to come on to again in a second. This is done quarterly. It's carried out by the product owner, organised by the product owner and the Scrum Master, but includes actually everybody who is engaged in the project, all the different teams, all the different project owners, all the different SROs. And it represents a prioritised backlog of product features committed to be delivered within a given time frame, which is the next PI. Then we have iteration or sprint planning, which is done every iteration by the team and by the product owner. And it includes short fixed length subsets of releases of the product, and it's typically around 2 to 4 weeks. And then we have the daily stand up. Okay, and during the daily stand up we talk about actions taken to achieve the iteration goals, typically the actions that we took yesterday, the things that we did today, and the things that we're planning tomorrow. And we talk about any blockers or barriers that we have so that they can be removed to enable us to get the work done. Okay. I'm going to just go back over PI planning because Dawn has already covered it in respect of, the customer perspective and how important it is to save. It really is central to the success of Save, because everything we do as a project team stems from the PI planning exercise. It is dynamic and it is holistic, and it allows us a view across all streams, which allows us then to be responsive to change. But it's not prescriptive. Okay, we are always open to change, and we accept that we can only plan with what we know. Okay, so a huge benefit of the PI planning exercise is that both the customer and the project teams are fully engaged, and there is complete transparency. When we fail fast, and everyone learns. Everyone hears about it. Everyone is able to benefit from that learning experience. We discuss features, enablers, dependencies, and risks within all of the streams that we're working on, so that we can keep track of any prerequisites and line the work up. On the PI planning days, everybody gets together, the project teams, the product owners, the key stakeholders, and it's great. It's great for everyone to get together. It brings a real energy to the project, and it's lots of fun. There might be cakes, and we do try to make it a social event because it helps us build and maintain relationships. As Dawn has mentioned, we plan out features, we check our dependencies, we move our enablers forward, and then we mitigate any risk. Because we know how many people we have in each team, once we've sized all of the features, we can determine roughly how many we can include within that iteration, based obviously on the man hours that we know we have available over the next 3 months. The key thing for PI planning that we always have to remember is that we plan with what we know, and we accept that things may change. Okay. So next, I'm going to talk a little bit about cadence. Cadence is it's a great word, right? It's another term you'll hear used, and it means how regularly something happens. So in Agile, it's often used to refer to the number of days or weeks in a sprint, or the number of sprints in a program increment. A shorter cycle leads to a faster cadence, and the faster the cadence, the quicker the feedback that we can get from the customers, and the more rapid the development is, and so on. Creating cadence removes uncertainty, which helps us to enforce quality and aids collaboration. And synchronizing cadence across teams enables people and activities to move a bit like cogs in a wheel. So a sprint or an iteration is a time box period allotted to completing a set amount of work. This can vary from project to project depending on how often you want to release, and it's generally between 1 and 4 weeks, and is fixed for the duration of the project. So on the screen here, this is something that I've just put together to show you how this may work in practice, where you have a number of iterations, and then for each iteration you have a number of weeks which are made up, obviously, in this case, by sort of 15 days. And throughout that time period, you can allocate your activities such as build, SAT, UAT, and release. And you can have several different streams working during that same time, carrying out different activities. Okay. So The next thing I'm going to talk about briefly, next slide please, Dawn, thank you, is resourcing. So on this image, you can see the difference between a traditionally managed team and an agile team. So in a traditional team, you can see that the project manager actually controls what the team does. They generally plan out the work and allocate tasks, and they're responsible, as I mentioned earlier, for all the comms and liaising with the customer. An agile team is quite different. Okay, an agile team is self-organizing, and this allows a much better use of time. You know, it's estimated that agile teams are 20% more productive than traditional teams. It means that they're not waiting around for the PM, and they can actually get on and do what needs to be done. There is still a place for PMs, though, just to mention, but they act more as a coordinator of delivery and much less in a much less hierarchical way. And they're also agile teams are also cross-functional, so this provides a technical agility and it eliminates issues in handoff. And because we have a holistic view of all of the work streams, it means that we can slot work in and out because we have the skills available to carry out that work, and reduces delay, as because you're not waiting for availability of particular skills. Okay, next slide. So I'm briefly going to come on to quality and talk about user stories and acceptance criteria, rapid prototyping, MVP and improving iteratively, applying learning, consistency of design build, and fewer defects. These are all benefits that we get through SAFe. Okay, it means that quality is built into everything that we do. When we run our workshops, we gather user stories, epics, and themes, more terms that you may have heard of. User stories are their requirements or requests written in the perspective of the end user. You know, we're not writing down things in terms of the system and what the system can do. We're actually understanding them at the first point of contact from the user, understanding exactly what it is that user needs to do as part of their role. Okay, we collect those user stories into what we call epics. Okay, and those epics are then collected into themes. Okay, once we have all of those together, we can begin to put together a design. And because we are working to create an MVP, we can do that very rapidly and create a rapid prototype. And actually Dynamics lends itself perfectly to creating rapid prototypes. We can actually build something very, very quickly, get it out, show it to the users, do the system demos, and they can give us feedback, which allows us to improve that MVP iteratively. Okay, and we can apply learning as we go along, so that we learn from.
Sheryl, sorry,
Yep.
have you just a couple of minutes over?
Oh, it's okay. I'm almost finished. I'm
Perfect.
just
Thank you.
yeah. And we can apply learning. We can be consistent with our build, and we can hopefully achieve fewer defects. Okay, next slide, Dawn.
Okay, so mindful of the time. So success is measured in benefits delivered, not polished products that no one is using because it doesn't integrate. MVP, minimum viable product, is your friend. Welcome it to the party early. So what benefits has Huxley delivered? Dynamics is the first app development capability to be deployed onto ModNet, which is our secure military network. Currently rolling out Power Platform on top of Dynamics and integrating with 13 separate TLB development teams into our release train. Having automated the governance for Power Apps, given we have potentially, as Sheryl said, 180,000 citizen developers on our network. Again, an agile release to get the power of the tooling into the hands of the dev teams as soon as possible. Specifically for CAMs, but copy that across for all those other processes. We have a single source of the truth, shared updates across processes and reusable many times. always up-to-date version, viewable by many at the same time, management information, and morale. It can remove frustration and repetition from the day job. I'm not going to say what release of CAMS we're on because John will correct me, but we've been live since October 19. We are still building, but we're on a yearly cycle with CAMS, and we've been building it to fit that cycle in an agile format. Our list of customers grows weekly, including Declutter, which is where Sheryl came in over a year ago. We are a government agency, so our funding changes more than the British summer weather. But being agile allows us to not only respond immediately to those fluctuations in resource demands, but with procurement of a contract set exactly to meet that requirement, we need to embrace and accept as part of the ethos that rather than panic and present it as a failure or an issue, through the iterative process of design, build, test, relieve, we have delivered something regardless of when we pause or stop that project. And that deliverable will have a clear, usable documentation sat there ready for the next wave of funding or team to incorporate in the product to take forward accordingly. Declutter has been on pause for 4 months, but hopefully I will be told tomorrow that we are starting again. But with a potential change of priority and licensing model, and thus a change of solution, dynamics to Power Apps, but the as is and to be and development build already completed, it's all ready to go straight into the next iteration or even the downstream process. In my view, and as Sheryl explained, if you're doing safe right, it should have energy, and frankly, it should be fun. And agile and safe are just more tools in your toolkit, and you scale and mix to suit the stuff to get done. Within ASDT, led by Brigadier Sharkey, a key part of our ethos is knowledge sharing for the greater good, hence my attendance here this evening. So, should you have a government customer or similar that you feel would benefit from chatting with us on introducing either Dynamics or Safe, then do please get in touch with either myself or Sheryl. Thank you for listening, and do you have any questions?
Hey, look, thanks, guys. I just want to say thank you very much for putting this together, because it was obviously a big effort for you, and imparting that information. What I'm going to say is, because we've overrun a little bit.
Yeah, sorry.
There are no, it's fine. That's fine. We're all friends. It's fine. I actually have a couple of questions because I'm on a scaled agile framework project right now, even though I didn't really know that until a few days ago. Would you be okay to stay on and we can take questions at the end?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you don't both have to stay on, but
as well.
One or other. Sorry, Neil?
We might get Mr. Benson to join in as well.
If he can stick around, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
but we have a couple of minutes and then we're going to start the next session, which is on Power Automate. But thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
It's a bit hard to do clapping in virtual events, but I'm going to.
Let's all come off mute and have a clap.